nothing to say. I give and I give, you take, take, take. And I'm left with these four walls, at least every other day. If I were those walls, oh, what I would say.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome back to another UA Office Hours. Hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Hopefully you made some awesome music. Maybe you got outside a little bit, celebrated the fresh air, the new lease on life in some certain ways. You know what I'm talking about. Either way, it's Q&A Monday. We're here to answer you guys' questions. We don't have a ton pre-planned for you guys today. As you may have noticed on the schedule for this week, we've got a lot of shows. Some of you might remember when we have lots of shows, what typically is happening when we have lots of shows. So either way, we need your guys' questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we possibly can. And by we, I mean Drew, Matt, and myself. How you guys doing?
Good. Good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Nice. Man, we're getting good questions. Familiar faces, as always, which is always amazing. Great to wake up to on a Monday morning and see Danielle as your very first comment on the YouTube page.
Oh, yeah.
Nice to see everybody. Victor as well. Yep, got all the homies.
We did not say update.
No, I didn't say it. I said nothing. I said we have a lot of shows this week.
That's right. That's all we said.
Fueling the fire. So I'm just gonna keep scrolling here through some of these. Will we ever see AAX plugin format? I can't comment definitively, but I can say pretty surely. I don't think so. It's going to be AU, even like the UAD plugins inside of Luna are technically running as the AU versions, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, AAX is a proprietary format specifically to Pro Tools, so it's not a universal system. It's not a universal format.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm without work since March, producing a bunch of people in Luna and conquering the world in January. Nice. Good to see David. Victor's asking about Sidechain. How's living without Sidechain? I can, I'll take on that question. Living without Sidechain is, I have no issues with it. I was never a big Sidechain user to begin with, but the only time I really want things to be kind of pushing against each other, I will typically do that by busting them together and kind of put the kick snare and the bass together, for instance, and then have those be working on like a parallel compressor. It can get you a lot of that effect. It gets, if you're looking for the glue effect, if you're looking for the I want my drums to kind of push stuff out of the way, if that's the sort of sidechain effect you're looking for, you can just kind of bust stuff together, maybe do it in parallel, and then bring that down, and you get a little bit of that aggressive pumping action that you may be looking for sidechain. Obviously, the precise sidechain stuff, or like ducking delays, things like that, those you're going to have to wait for an actual sidechain solution for. But in the meantime,
for me, I'm kind of like you, Ben. I didn't do a lot of sidechaining to begin with, and in fact, in my world, I do primarily acoustic music, rock, pop, whatever. That's all. It typically involves mics, and in a weird sort of way, like the fact that I think I might need a sidechain means to me, in a weird sort of way, that I'm not done mixing yet. Like, in other words, my goal is to not feel the need to do it. Like, I want everything to cohesively fit together without any sort of quote unquote trickery. You know what I mean? Like, so that's part of the nuances to me. Like, how do I get that kick and the bass to work together and so that they each have their own space without reverting to some sort of thing. But I totally, I get the idea. But like you said, with like ducking verbs or ducking delays and stuff, that stuff is definitely cool for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you're doing more electronic stuff where you kind of need side chaining, there's some great like MIDI triggered gate plugins out there, like Transfer LFO Tool, Polyverse Gatekeeper is another really good one that I've been using lately.
I've used the Sound Toys Tremolator for the last 12 years to do this effect. Like anytime I wanted to like like the up into the upbeat kind of sidechain effect, I went from my mind. I went straight to a tremolo plugin for that. Because you get perfect control over that, over the animation of it, and plus you can end up getting in there and you can do not just consistent rhythms, but you can also do like syncopated rhythms, and just kind of gives you that real fine tooth control over any sort of rhythmic effect like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for EDM and stuff, I mean the gating, the MIDI triggered gating often sounds a lot cleaner than just a traditional sidechain anyway.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Alessandro on Facebook is asking about parallel compression or parallel buses for drums.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, I come from Pro Tools and I'd like to know the best way to do a parallel drum bus. Do I send individual tracks to the drum bus and the parallel bus, or do I send to the drum bus to another bus, right?
Yep.
So
the infinite question, right? What's the best way to parallel compress my drums? So
Yeah.
Drew, there's a couple of different ways to accomplish this, right?
Yeah. My method, I prefer the sends method simply because it just gives me the maximum amount of control. So, I've got my original, you've got your original drums and they go to a drum sub and that becomes my normal subgroup. But then I'll create a separate dedicated bus, and I usually just call it drum crush or something like typical, like a lot of people do. And then like, I like to send to it from the sends. And then that way, because I don't like my overheads to go into the drum crush nearly as loud as the kick and snare and so forth and so on. So I much prefer the send method. So I don't know, what's your favorite?
I bounce back and forward. I used to always use the output assignment one, so the same mix is going to the different buses. But I'm with you on that, man. Of like, having the overheads, just getting this extra level of control over a certain track to say like, cool, I want my kick and snare to really push that bus, but I want the overheads or the rooms or especially the hi-hat. No one likes too much hi-hat in their parallel compressed drums. At least I don't. And so having that extra control and being able to come in here and just bring the hi-hat down 10 dB or 6 dB, so you still get some of it, but a lot less of it. It is a really great way of doing it. I'm finding myself more and more going this route. But at the same time, I was talking with one of our artists last week, and he was asking me about, we're kind of comparing and contrasting Luna and Pro Tools, like how you get things done. And one of them was setting up parallel drum buses. So, if you're coming from Pro Tools, you're probably used to sending your drums to a drum bus, and then you can make 3-4 different aux tracks that all listen to the same bus input. So that's the one thing in Luna to me it's very much kind of a 180 in how you assign those things. So instead of assigning the same input to multiple aux tracks, to accomplish that same goal, to send these drums not just to my drum bus here, but to also send them to my second drum bus. If I can type, typing is clearly hard this morning. So now, when I do that, you'll notice it rewrote it. So now all these are assigned to second drum bus. But what I can do is I can come over here into my routing assignment, hold command. And now when I'm pressing command, notice my output switch down here. Now it says multiple. And you can see up here too, in current, it's now assigned to multiple buses. You can do this as far as I know, there isn't a limit for the amount of buses that you can send a track to. So you can use this to, send into your drum parallel or a second drum bus. So I've set up some of my templates to use this, especially if I'm doing something with like a transient designer on it, to have something that's just like literally there to support transients across the whole group. I'll set it up this way.
And by the way, that what you just showed, Ben, you can do with the sends too, which is super unique to Luna. Best I'm aware of. You can multi-assign sends. So you could have, even if you're using the send method, you could be sending to two different parallel buses that have different flavors of parallel compression, but controlled by the same send. So you're not like chewing up two sends to go to this two different buses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the multiple assignment thing is really good. So yeah, that's as far as I know, that's kind of the two most foolproof methods to be doing parallel compression inside of Luna. So using sends or using the multi-output assignment on your track. Nice, good question.
Yeah, hopefully that got it, Alessandro. Let us know. Follow up if it didn't. Do you have any follow-ups?
Maro saying Luna works well for me in High Sierra. Why? Most things work. It's just not supported. We don't like that's kind of the key there, right? Matt is like we don't test. Yep. We only test in Mojave and Catalina to ensure compatibility. So yeah, it worked. I kind of ran into the same issue. I was running on High Sierra for during like the alpha stage, and it worked okay. But every once in a while, I get like a GUI bug, or I'd hit a bug, and then since it's not getting tested, it was really hard for the devs to troubleshoot it. Of like, is this a Luna issue or is this a High Sierra compatibility issue? So yeah, it may be working, but it's just not recommended. It's not supported. And biggest tip, I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but anytime you're going to make like a major OS change, if you can afford it, I would always recommend to buy a new boot drive. To be you can set up, especially on a Mac, it's kind of easy to be able to swap hard drives and set it up as a brand new install. Gives you kind of a nice fresh start, which is a major weekend project. Could be a major pain in the ass to have to reinstall all of your plugins and reinstall all of your software, but you also get that chance to kind of know that you're working from a clean configuration, and there should be no gremlins or bugs in there as you kind of go piece by piece installing stuff back in there. And the great part is the reason why I stress it's important to start with a new fresh drive so that you can get back to your old drive. So that way, if you do run into an issue, or if you run into a compatibility thing where you need to go back to, say, in a big compatibility thing when you're moving from High Sierra to Mojave or Catalina is the 32-bit to 64-bit only restriction, right? So if you've got 32-bit plugins that you need to pull up an old session, you're going to want to grab your old drive and be able to boot off of that to be able to restore those sessions and do anything you need to do.
The acoustic file is asking, can we use electric drums with Luna? Definitely. I got a TD15 back here that I use with Luna. There's no MIDI mapping in Luna yet, of course, so you just have to assign the individual pads to whatever note you want to trigger on the drum kit itself. But yeah, it works great. Don't really need any other setup other than that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Jazz Pistols is saying as Q mixes are getting unresponsive after switching to ARM mode, and only after toggling the individual faders, the signal comes back. Is this a known bug? I think I've run into this one once or twice myself. And yeah, typically it just seems to be like a toggling thing, right? Of like kind of taking it in and out of record. Because it is building, kind of a little bit of how the sausage is made here, right? It's like ARM, what it's doing is it's routing audio inside of your Apollo. It's moving signal around both digital and analog to, power through plugins, power through cues, and every once in a while, if it gets off track, simply toggling it on and off should bring it back. It kind of reroutes all those configurations and gets it back into the cues. So it's hard to tell exactly what's causing it, but often, just a quick little on-off will solve it.
And maybe you might be a good candidate for trashing your UAD prefs. Just kind of sometimes trash and prefs just kind of knocks the cobwebs off. So that, doesn't take long to do. And you can find instruction. If you Google UAD delete prefs, delete preferences rather, it'll come up on your first hit. So that might be worth doing too. Mm-hmm. Butch asked on Facebook about we talked about our workaround for track presets, Ben. So, and he was referring to a little arrow in the channel. And that was in console, right? So, mm-hmm. The workaround that we showed a couple of weeks ago for track presets is that you can make them in console. And then if you recall it in console first and then arm the track in Luna, it will pull those at least unison and record effects settings in. So hopefully that answers your question, Butch. It's super simple. Just go to console, recall your track preset first, then arm the track in Luna, and those settings will be pulled into Luna. So
nice. I see a question here. Mafioso Williams asking, when will Luna fully support AU plugins like Vocaline and Melodyne? Well, Melodyne already works. I've used it a bunch in sessions. Since you can transfer into it, and it links up the timelines all synchronized together really well. So I've run some rather large vocal sessions through Melodyne and had no issues. Vocaline, however, requires, it's kind of a commit process. There is no real, as far as I know, there's no real-time AU plugin version of Vocaline. Is there, Drew?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, that's kind of Vocaline is using the audio suite facilities inside of Pro Tools. I'm not sure how it works with other apps, or if it does. I'm not a user of that. I use Revoice Pro, but that uses a separate import-export thing.
And that's a standalone version of it, essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, and just to be Melodyne, in case maybe the questioner is asking, there is a little bug happening with Melodyne, where if you hit transfer first, then hit the transport, it could crash Luna right now. But if you hit transport first, then click transfer real quick, that works. And I can tell you that in an upcoming version, that is fixed in Luna. So just, if that's what that original poster was asking about.
Nice.
Matt had a question about routing multiple MIDI tracks to a VI on another track, which you can definitely do. Let me share my screen real quick here. So yeah, I've got just a track with shape loaded on it, and then 2 blank MIDI tracks with no instrument loaded on it. If you go to the MIDI outfield of any of your MIDI tracks, you can set it to the input of another track. So for example, I can send to channel 1 of my shape track. On my second MIDI track, I can go down here and send it to channel 2 of the shape instrument. Yeah, and you can do that up to 16 times, of course.
Nice. And so when you're sending into shape on those different MIDI channels, is it triggering different MIDI? Is it triggering the different parts of shape, or is it just triggering all 4 of the parts equally?
I'm not sure how shape manages the channels off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the manual for that. But if you did have a virtual instrument that you can assign, different MIDI channels to different layers, you could definitely, have one channel triggering the first layer, have the second channel triggering the second layer, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Nice. When I'm on Q1, Jazz Pistols replied here. When I'm listening on Q1 and listening back through my headphones to record stuff, I'm not hearing only levels of QMix 1. Is it somehow a mix with the main faders and buses? So Jazz Pistols, I would recommend maybe what's happening here, and the clue that you just gave me there to go check in your session, is that you're hearing the whole mix, which is totally possible with a Q. So you'll notice here on my main fader, which I've recolored white instead of orange, you can have Q sends. And often, if you're like me, I just go in here, I press Option, and I click on my Q sends, with all my tracks selected, and just kind of blast them all up. But you'll notice the main doesn't join in on that unless I explicitly come over here and option click on it. But you can notice that still, with selection grouping turned on, they will go up. So, if you're setting your cues and you've got a bunch of tracks selected, maybe your main fader is getting a part of that selection group as you're adjusting all of your cue sends. So yeah, check your main fader to see if you're sending into the cue, because that would make a lot of sense for what you're saying there. LFO tool. Yeah, the tooltip LFO tool is really cool. Another one I'll point out, it looks like I might even already have it here in the session. The Moog Multimode Filter XL, which comes with, if you buy the Moog Multimode filter, it comes with a collection of these filters. But one of the coolest, I didn't draw it in on this one, is, and I think I highlighted this in a 5-minute tip video about
you did.
Right? Dude.
Yeah, you did. Yep.
I love the sequencer in here. The fact that you can get in here, you can sequence, especially filter cutoff, drive, or volume. I can do this in like 2 seconds, so I can just do a quick little sweep, and then one of the keys here is to round it out. So if you leave this knob over here on the square, it's going to be very stepwise. You're going to hear those subdivisions. But if you smooth it out, you can get just nice smooth ramps of volume that are kind of triggered along with your beat. And of course, you can come over here and assign that to drive, or I would probably leave that one on output volume if I wanted kind of a sweeping sidechain effect. But then of course you can get in here with your filter and have it's such a fun sequencer to be able to come in here and play with. So yeah, I highly recommend also checking this one out.
And that distortion circuit in the Moog filter is outstanding. Like
So
it's
good.
it's so good. And I put it on the silliest, like tambourine. Like tambourine is like one of the nastiest, harmonically ugly kind of things, especially if it's not recorded well. But like, man, that Moog filter, little bit of drive on that makes a tambourine super sweet.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing this all the time for any drums that come in too harsh or like aren't quite meaty enough. Like literally just some drive and a little roll off of the cutoff filter on there. Like,
Yep. Yeah.
you'd be really surprised how quick you'll get to a really badass drum sound with that
Yep.
thing.
Absolutely.
Any way to use Isotope Stutter Edit in Luna? I believe you can use it. It runs as an effect plugin, but it receives MIDI. If I remember this correctly. So what actually is similar to what Matt was just showing you guys of how you're able to route, take an instrument track and send the MIDI from that to another track. That should work perfectly for Stutter Edit as well.
Yeah, once you load Stutter Edit on an audio track, it'll show up in that MIDI out menu as an available route.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Beforms, every time I run plugins and the render meter spikes and crashes, Luna, need help, please switch to FL because of this. So yeah, meter spikes, Luna crashes. What Matt, Drew, what's kind of your recommendation? What's the go-to to help people solve any sort of crashing problems?
Well, I would say for the first thing is the crashing is definitely, likely to be an AU plugin that needs updating, or that might have an issue with Luna. So, one thing you can do to test this is to go into the audio units components folder and temporarily drag them out onto an empty folder on your desktop. You can Google this, like, where are audio units plugins? You'll find out where they are. Drag them out of the folder, restart Luna, and it'll rescan. And typically then you can put them back in and see which one's doing it. But I would just check to make sure that all those AUs are up to date and they're at the newest. And then if you do find a conflict, submit that via feedback. That's exactly the kind of information the team would want and need. I'm sure Matt will maybe have a few things to say as well.
Yeah, that's a great first step. And if you find that you can add all your plugins back and you're still having the same problem, trashing the workspace folder, like we mentioned earlier, would be a good next step.
Mm-hmm. Terrell Jones saying he's having to log into Luna every time it opens it. He's tried deleting preferences and reinstalled, but he's getting the same thing. Also, his Apollo hardware isn't connecting at times. So Matt, I don't know about you, but that makes me think it might be a cable or a port issue. Like the non-connecting thing, typically, was it like 8 times out of 10, it ends up being a cable issue?
Totally, yeah. Bad cables are like the most common cause for any kind of UAD hardware not being recognized. So try a different cable if you have one. Try a different port on your computer. Make sure it's not a bad port. Mm-hmm. If you're on a Mac, obviously if you're using Luna, then try an SMC reset. That resets the Thunderbolt ports on the hardware. That's always a good step too.
Nice.
Oh, and just to be clear, the skipping the universal audio thing. One of the things, and pace is pretty solid, but there are occasionally pace outages. And one of the things I've been recommending to people is to go ahead and, purchase a USB iLock key. And every system gets 2 Luna authorizations. One defaults to the cloud, but you have one sitting in your iLock account. And if you have a USB key, you can drag that to the USB key, and therefore you're covered in both cases. You have an iLock license, a cloud license that's active, and you can do it at the studio and on the laptop and so forth. But you also have that backup of the key. And if you're ever, therefore, if the cloud's ever down, you can just hit skip and Luna will authorize off of that USB key. So that's something that I recommend every user do, is go ahead and use those 2 licenses, put them in those 2 locations, and you'll be covered either way.
Yeah,
Totally.
Solar Lion's asking, how do you combine short staccato and long trumpet notes when using Shape or Spitfire on the same performance MIDI track? Different performance settings. So currently I have to use 2 tracks and execute combined performance of staccato and long notes. So Solar Line, inside the Spitfire instruments, those support key switching. So at the bottom of the keyboard, you'll find that you're able to switch articulations between an instrument. However, hopefully you check this out, but we did an awesome episode with Oliver from Spitfire, who came on, and he'd done a whole horn and string arrangement with Fab and Lewis for their song Everyman. And we covered that. This one's really easy to find on a YouTube channel. Just search for like Spitfire, Tales from the Switch, and he goes through his process. And his process is to have different tracks for each articulation. It makes it really easy to keep track of what's going on. So you can see, oh, cool, I want a staccato note. It's on my staccato track, as well as so then you don't have to you don't have to think about key switching. You don't have to worry about it being on the wrong key switch, since key switches are often just like a momentary press. If you miss it and then you go, you put your playhead on the bridge and your key switch was like 2 bars before the bridge, you're going to be hearing the wrong articulation unless you back your playhead up, play through the key switch, and then keep going. So there's multiple reasons why using the multiple tracks workflow just to me makes a lot more sense as well. But specifically for Shape doesn't have key switching like the Spitfire instruments do. So that would be the way to do it using the Shape instruments and having
that was a great
multiple
episode too. Yeah, it was really cool to get inside Oliver's head and see what he had done, and then watch, Fab and Lewis edit it, and then, land in that sweet spot. It was really cool.
Dude, like the fact that they're doing that in real time, it was cool. Seeing Oliver's process was really interesting. You're totally right. Of like, so you see is like, the layout of all the tracks, all the different articulations and instruments, but then in real time, as Fab and Lewis are like, hey, like actually we want a line for the intro, or like we're thinking like this, and they could like sing a melody to him, or give him an idea. He would just have these like temporary ensemble tracks, so he could just quickly sketch something out, rough it out real quick, and then keep moving. And then in the background, after the episode, he went back in and finalized and perfected the arrangement before we ultimately mixed it.
Yeah, those Spitfire ensembles are like, that's a little bit of a cheat code there. Like you can really get kind of,
sounds so good.
Yeah, really like pro sounding like strings, like even if you're like me, a one key at a time keyboard player.
Yeah.
Michael Gamble was saying sometimes his overload lights come on, but he's not seeing any clip indicators on any individual tracks. Sounds like you might be in post fader metering. If you're in post fader, you might be clipping pre fader, but the meters are only showing you clipping if it's happening post fader. So check that in the Luna settings.
Yeah, that's an easy setting to get to. Just hit on the diamond logo, settings, and then it's here in options. You can see I'm already we've had contentious arguments about this before in office hours. I am a post fader kind of guy. These guys are a little bit more pre fader style life.
So you can see what happens when you see what happens when you're post fader.
Exactly.
That could be. Although I have, I think I answered Mike in the chat where like I have actually had people that are on pre fader still seeing that, and I believe I'd have to triple check on this, but I believe Luna checks for overloads in various points in the signal flow. So even though your channel meters might not be showing it, it could be a plugin, it could be the output of a plugin, or from one plugin to the other. That's probably something we'd have to ask Connor about, exactly where those exact meter points are, where it checks for that. But it's not just the channel meters, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Victor is saying Spitfire is really something. The labs and piano book are and 100% agree. If you guys don't already know about Spitfire Labs or the piano book, Christian Henson, one of the founders of Spitfire, has got an amazing YouTube channel where he's constantly geeking out about music and especially samples and sounds. So Labs is it's a collection of largely, I think it's all free or largely free, all free instruments that you can download. And it's very community developed, so that way it's some really cool, unique sounds that you won't find anywhere else.
Yeah, they release new instruments like every month too. It's awesome.
What fruit do you think you could kick the farthest, Matt?
Could I kick the farthest? Going like a honeydew melon or something like that.
How ripe is it? You got to ask how ripe it is.
It's like avocados are nice and bouncy, right?
Yeah.
I think I would probably go with the orange. Just it's a good size. It's a decent weight. It's got great aerodynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little squishy, so absorb the force.
Exactly. It'd be really funny for everyone in chat that we've been joking about what's coming up this week. But so we've got, like I mentioned, we've got shows tomorrow. Tomorrow we've got Jeff Balding, amazing Nashville producer engineer. Wednesday we've got Damian Taylor, another incredible producer engineer from out here in LA. And then Thursday we have Charlie Hunter, incredible jazz guitarist, bassist, multi-instrumentalist. He's got a new project with an artist named Darren, who's all been working inside of Luna. So we've got a ton of amazing artist content coming up this week. But it's all in support of something that, if you guys have followed along here long enough, you probably know. I'm just curious. We've got a lot of ride or die. We got some good homies in here. What you guys think might be coming this week? We're just gonna feel the flames here with speculation. Just go ahead and speculate away, and we're gonna deny everything on our end. But go ahead. I'm really interested to see what you guys think.
So hey Ben, any Luna sessions possible in what you just talked about?
Yes. One of the Wednesday show, Damien's
nice.
contribution is getting transformed into the Luna session.
Nice. Those are super insightful. I love getting my hands on those.
Oh yeah, and we've got Jakir King's session that we did with the K Club. We had that big 2-day tracking session.
That's getting turned into one.
That's getting. Nice. We're going to be doing a mixing session with him here at the end of the month and turning that into a Luna session. Fab and Lewis's song coming as a Luna session. Basically, between now and Christmas, I think I've got at least 5 new Luna sessions coming your guys' way.
Sweet.
Really
Christmas
cool.
Christmas is coming early.
New Luna instrument, ? Control surface, new Max. Jason's wondering about the Superior Drummer split tutorial. Drew.
We're going to do it. Not today, but we're going to do it. I swear.
There's been technical difficulties have gotten in the way on Drew's rig.
Yeah, and we're getting. I'm getting them locked. I'm getting them solved. So nice. Stay tuned.
Charlie Hunter's I agree. Charlie Hunter's crazy, and I know him so much from from his jazz chops, but holy crap, that man does everything. And starting this year, he's learned. He's mainly been focused as a musician for the longest time, and now he's also recording. He's been doing it all inside of Luna since the lockdown started. So we're going to be geeking out a ton about not just the musician side of things, but also his dive into recording and using Luna. Nice. All right. Let's see any other.
Dave Martin says you're a perfect candidate to testify in front of the Senate because you can deny everything.
Someday the Ben Bobblehead plugin that grooves when your mix gets good. Yeah, that'd be a good one, Daniel. Nice. Look into the lab. Speculation. iOS implementation. Okay. Tom's asking, my Luna sessions take a lot longer to load than other DAWs, and you can see the same happen in virtual instruments. Is there a setting somewhere I could check? So Tom, load times for sessions, a lot of it has to do with the plugins, as far as I know. Like it's kind of the quantity, and what those plugins are having to do. So one of the big recommendations, is have an SSD drive for all of your samples, for even for your session files as well. It just speeds everything up a ton. And any tracks that you're not using, delete them out of your session. Kind of all the common tips and advice for thinning out your session a little bit. But the number one improvement speed wise is going to be moving everything onto an SSD. Because there isn't, as far as I know, Matt, there's no setting that that you can really check, right, for tweaking load times.
No, I mean, aside from where the samples for the instruments are stored, which, like you said, should definitely be on an SSD that's either USB 3, Thunderbolt, or PCIe.
Nice. Whatever comes, I just hope it's free. Some stock free metering plugs would be nice, and a tuner that works better than the current. Oh, man, I agree. I could not agree more. ES, hit the feedback button. Let them know how much you guys want a tuner. Tuner.
You guys made the MP3 export happen. You guys made reverse clip happen.
Yep.
You guys have made many things happen. So believe in the power of the feedback button.
All things Shoren's asking about, what about slow export times? Exporting files is much faster than mixdown. Yes. So whenever exporting files, that makes sense. When you're just doing Command-Shift-K and you're exporting those WAV files out, all it's doing is just copy pasting, taking the WAV file and throwing it onto your drive. Whereas when you're doing mixdown, it's calculating, it's running through the entire mix as fast as it possibly can. So some plugins are able to run faster than real time, but other plugins, especially if there's a lot of oversampling or just a lot of computation to go on, sometimes they don't really go any faster than real time. And I've even had times where they seem to run slower than real time, in which case I've just switched over to using real time bounce. And I'm coming from from always working with summing sessions, so I'm used to printing my audio back into my session anyways. So that one last listen through as you're mixing down, I find very cathartic. Even though, like, I'd say 50 to 60% of the time I find an error in my bounce and cancel the bounce halfway through because I want to bring the lead vocal up half a dB or something. But yeah, that one final listen, as much as I want to just bury my head in the sand and be like, it all sounds good, it is kind of helpful to do a real-time bounce, on top of the fact that it seems to be just as fast as a offline bounce in some cases. Jazz Pistols, is there a shortcut for deleting a just recorded take that doesn't work for me? Wasn't it Command Option Point? I'm on a German keyboard.
Well, the transport needs to still be rolling, because once you've hit stop, then it's the undo command that would undo the last thing. The command period for cancel recording is while the transport is rolling, right? Unless that's,
yep.
But maybe the German keyboard maybe the German keyboard throws a wrinkle in that. I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, command period, if you're in the middle of a take and you're like, this is rubbish, I never want to hear it again, command period cancels the take, does not store any of that audio. But yeah, as Drew mentioned, if you've pressed stop and you want to undo a take, just hit Command Z, and that'll undo the take. And if I'm correct, right, Matt, it will, as soon as you kind of move forward in your undo buffer, they're gone, right? So you can undo and then redo. So if you accidentally undo and take away your recording, you can get it back as long as you haven't made another move that kind of rewrites your future.
Yeah, anything when you do after that will overwrite that cache, and when you undo, it'll be the newest thing, not the thing before.
Just as dangerous as time travel. If you go back and change your timeline before, you get a whole new future, and the world could be more messed up.
Yeah,
okay, Tom says
butterfly effect.
Tom says that's why it wasn't working. Thanks for clearing this up. Cool. Awesome.
Nice.
Good to hear. Victor's asking again, can I adjust the track height and timeline view? Will I ever be able to adjust the width of channels in mixer view? Sometimes you want more channels. So I'll go backwards here. So channel width in the mixer view, those are fixed. I know Pro Tools has got a thing where you can make them fat or skinny. Right now it's full fat for Luna at the moment. However, track height in the timeline view, you can totally. There are some keyboard shortcuts to tweak these. So let me pull up my session here. So these are some of my favorite shortcuts to use. Control, Option, Command, down arrow. As you saw, it just brought all of my tracks into view. So it shrank
or up arrow.
Or up arrow. Yep, either one works.
They both work. Yeah.
So now I'll show you with the option. So one of the best shortcuts to know is that whenever you add option to something, it means do to all. So if I do Option, Control, up arrow, I'm now changing my track heights, and it's for my entire session. Even if I didn't have all my tracks selected in a selection group, Control, Option, up and down arrow changes my track height for all of my tracks. Now, if I just select, say, these 4 tracks, and I omit the option, so now I'm just pressing Control, up and down arrow, it's changing the track height just for those 4 tracks that are selected. So yeah, those are kind of the quickest, easiest ones to remember. And a lot of times what I'll find myself doing is kind of, expanding my drums, or, if I'm trying to be really efficient, what I'll do is I'll just select what I want to work on. So I just want to work on this a little bit and press the E key. And what E does is it automatically fits whatever I have selected to my screen. So it lets me really get in there, especially like if I wanted to just work on this one bar, zoom in, work on that bar, hit the E key, and it zooms me back out to where I just was. And then, of course, I can hit Control, Option, Command, down arrow, and now I've zoomed back out to see all my tracks again. So I'm kind of bouncing between the E key, the Control, Option, up and down arrow, and then every once in a while I just need to zoom out and reset and kind of see my whole session again by Control, Option, Command, up or down arrow.
And Ben, you can add to that. Like if you select your orange tracks, and then do Control, Option, and then up and down. It'll do. Make them smaller or make them larger, and then add Option. What you'll see is that you're relatively shrinking and expanding. If you hold down Control and Option, up and down, then they'll all stay relative to each other. Like the other ones will get bigger.
Exactly, and they'll stay one size ahead of the rest, and so
Exactly. Yeah.
and of course, if you want to do this the mouse way, right here next to the tracks window, this is where you can select track heights. And of course, you can get back here the medium to the default. Victor, if you're trying to ask about the timelines themselves, these, this part of the timeline, these are fixed. So these we can't make larger or smaller, like minutes and seconds, beats, bars. Those are all stay the same. The tempo one does do a drop down, since you may need to make tempo edits and be able to see that here on that. But otherwise, the rest of these are fixed.
So Tim was asking about moving Luna instruments, and the proper way to do that is from the manage page. You want to use if you click on your UA Diamond logo and go to the manage page, then you'll notice that it's a little bit of a you can go, if you go that there's 3 dots. If you didn't know that was a menu, those are a menu, and there's where you can move your instrument libraries if you want to put them onto an external drive. That's the proper way to do it. You don't want to drag and drop in the Finder. You want to do it within that, so that Luna knows what you've done and knows where to look.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Nice.
Sorry, Boris. None of us speak Spanish. Sorry, Boris.
Yeah. How about moving regions and having the markers follow the edits? So I believe
shift click
will do this, right?
Yeah, shift click in the marker ruler.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let's try this out all together now. So right here is going to be my chorus. So now let's say I wanted to add 2 bars of time here. So if I'm doing this the right way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the tracks menu here, so you can see this light gray one above it. When I click on that, all my regions, all my timelines, everything's getting selected. And if I hit Shift I just inserted time. So it inserted time on both my tracks and also on my rulers, including the marker ruler. So you can see now the chorus is shifted over by 2 bars. The markers will move if you're doing a shift edit. And I believe you can do it just to, say you wanted to leave your audio intact, but you wanted to move your marker. Obviously, an easy way to do that is to just, move your marker around. But I believe, if you just select on the marker ruler, all the same commands work. So, if I just select this, say this like 8-bar loop, I can do Command D and just duplicate those markers. I can copy and paste, so I can copy them there and paste them down here. The markers are treated, very similarly to clips in terms of edit functionality. And it is really nice being able to have these on their own ruler like this.
Go on Facebook, Victor, and answer his question then.
That'd be really helpful. You guys are so helpful. I love it. Is there a shortcut to set the counter? Good question. I don't believe. Yeah, the shortcut I know and love for setting the counter does not bring it up. As far as I know, unless Matt or do you guys know, you just had to come up and click on the counter to be able to type in a time, right?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, same here.
Any news? Bombhouse is asking, any news? No news today. News tomorrow. Keep a lookout tomorrow. We're back at like 10 a.m. tomorrow, kind of showing off the new stuff.
Moneyboy's talking about ARM not working properly all the time. That's another instance where you definitely do a full prefs trash if you're having any ARM issues, or toggling like we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes toggling on and off. There's a couple of places you can do it. So you can do it on the track itself. But a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just come over here and just turn ARM off and back on completely. Will work as well. So that's available down here in the mixer window, or it's up here in the global area as well. Nice. I'm excited. Boris, and distributors in Ecuador, he wants to buy an Apollo. Yeah, I'm not sure what the situation is in Ecuador for distributors. But I know that
There's a dealer
go
locator on our site. You
Yeah.
just go to uaudio.com, click find a dealer in the top left, and it'll plug in your country. It'll show you all your dealers.
Yeah.
So we got the shortcut. Will ARM ever work with third-party plugins and low latency for tracking guitar with other plugins? No. So ARM is very specific. It works with your Apollo's DSP, the built-in Shark processors. So unless the plugins are coded for UAD, unless they are able to use that DSP and be routed in there, you won't be able to use them in ARM mode. It is kind of a requirement. It is. I know everyone would love to be able to use any plugin they want in the low latency mode, but the fact of the matter is that it needs that DSP power in order to do it with low latency, like how we do it.
In fact, this is the entire foundation of Luna is that it solves this problem. It creates an environment where you don't have to think about buffers. That's why there's no buffer settings. It's just like, hey, ARM is all about just creating a low latency path instantly, no matter what else is happening in the mix, no matter how many other plugins you have going, no matter how close to being finished your mix you are. So the easy thing is to do is we have guitar sims and stuff on our platform. The easy thing to do is track with them in your in your Luna inserts so that you're just monitoring through them. And you can even keep your other one, your AU amp sim just below it. And when you arm the track, the AU one will be automatically bypassed. The UA one will, still be alive. You can track your parts. And then the moment you unarm the track, bypass the UA version and your audio units version springs back to life. And, and then there you go. You've got that, you've got it going through there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. AYL is asking about Luna automation and asking if anything's changed in the last couple of months. There was an update to automation. Was it 1.1 or is it 1.09? I can't quite remember. Where one of the updates was it now responds in real time. So as you're making automation adjustments, if you're in the middle of a playback, it'll actually be making those automation adjustments in real time as you're listening, which is super handy to be able to be drawing in automation, hear the results of it without having to stop and start your playback. That being said, I know there's one really key one that a lot of people are asking for, which is value display, being able to see, if you put a point on the dot, be able to see what the value of that one is. We've heard lots of feedback about that one. We know about it. We know.
I will say that's more complicated than you think. It's actually, there's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes for when you're mousing and when you're moving to get those delays right. And some things are simple on and offs, and some things have percentages, some things have numbers. It's probably,
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to
There's
display.
a lot.
But but the team knows about it. They're working on it. It's coming, guys. Will there be a markers window to be able to jump to different locations? That's a great question. Not at the moment, but hit the feedback button. Let them know that's a feature you want, because I also really want that feature as well. I loved being able to quickly with like a keyboard shortcut or something like that, be able to bounce from marker to marker.
We do have keyboard shortcuts for that. We do have those.
Remind us, Drew. What are the keyboard shortcuts for markers?
Gosh, what's funny is I have them programmed into my Stream Deck. So I actually it's been a while since I use them. Let me just check real quick. It's like Option Command and then the L and colon, right? The L and the apostrophe. Yeah. Right. So try the Option Command and then L and the apostrophe, or it might be Control and Option.
Control. I think it's Control and Option.
Yeah.
Oops. Don't know what that one was.
Let's go to the manage page.
I know, right? There we go. So Control, Option, L
and quotes.
And quotes. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how you can jump from marker to marker. That's
I
one.
Have them.
Yeah, that's
one
I
would. Stream Deck. Yeah,
exactly. That's definitely one I would program in.
I got that one on my Stream Deck along with waveforms. I saw another one. Somebody was asking about the waveforms, which is Option Command, and the brackets will raise and lower them. And then if you add in Control and the left bracket, that resets them. Those I also have those on my Stream Deck where I don't know if we probably won't be able to see this, but so like,
Oh, nice.
So I have, this is forward marker. These are the markers, and then these are the heights, you know.
Oh, nice.
So
I see you've pimped yours out with some nice looking icons there.
it just screen grabs.
Uh-huh.
I just did.
I just
did the Luna's GUI, and I've shown that on the forums, and people are like, "Hey, can you share this?" And I was like, "These are not like special buttons. It's just me, you know, Command Shift 4. Command Shift 4 on the Mac OS will bring up crosshairs and allow you to selectively take a screenshot. So you can just go into, you know, zoom in on the part of Luna's GUI that you want and make any buttons that you want, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Is it possible to create a new instrument track and have it not default to shape? Yes, you sure can make one. You can't, the shortcut, we've shown the shortcut.
Command Shift I. Yeah, Command Shift I will make a shape instrument. But if you do a new instrument, you can choose to not do it, right?
Exactly. So you can do Command Shift N to bring up your new track dialog. What I'll often do is I'll I'm keyboard kind of G over here. So I'm going to go Command down arrow to make it an instrument track. That automatically makes it stereo, and it automatically makes it start loading shape. So I can come over here and I can click, and I can just say none if I want no instrument.
Yeah, you can do option arrows too.
Option arrows, yeah.
Yep, option arrow steps through all of my instruments. So again, yeah, you can do this all with shortcuts of, you know, Command up and down to be changing my track type, Option to change what's inserted on there. And yeah, that's a nice quick way of doing it. But yeah, the Command Shift I shortcut, it's essentially a, you know, make a shape track shortcut.
Yeah. Gregory's asking about nudging regions or nudging clips. We don't have that now. You can just nudge MIDI clips at the moment, but hit that feedback button. Let us know.
Yeah.
I saw a question. Can we get some demo of using Luna for non-music style editing? I'd love to leave Pro Tools for editing voiceover. It seems like Luna is locked to bars and beats and no way to lock shuffle edit. That's a great suggestion. We'll put that on our list as like a topic to cover here in a future office hours. But just in the meantime, just to get you going here and start thinking about it, you can change your Luna to be minutes and seconds. So you can take your main counter to be minutes and seconds, but you'll notice that the main ruler stays beats and bars. Luna, you know, it's very much oriented towards music recording at the moment. It's like people, especially the first couple of months, were always asking about post production and some of these voiceover style things. It was definitely created with music creation in mind. But that being said, you can, for shuffle edits. The thing to know about for Luna is that we call them shift edits. And the reason why we call them shift edits is because you hit the shift key and now you're doing those sorts of edits. So let's say, let's pretend this bass track is a VO. I can get in here and I can say I want to take from this phrase to this phrase, delete it, shift delete. Deletes that, shuffles my track forward, just as you would expect with a shuffle mode edit. And you may notice too, like I'm being locked into the bars and beats on the grid here. You can simply come up here and press the snap button, and now I'm off the bar, and I'm no longer restricted to just bars and beats for my cursor, and it's just able to smoothly move around, so I can go from word to word or from phrase to phrase, and be able to make edits as I please. So by turning the grid off, using the shift command to do any sort of shuffle edits that you're looking to do, and changing your counter from bars and beats to minutes and seconds, should get you a long way towards doing this, the similar sort of workflow that you're looking to do. But definitely hit us in the questions here if you've got more techniques or things about voiceover editing or recording that you want to know about, and we can definitely prepare a little segment for you guys on that.
That's true for anything, really. Any ideas, any show ideas you guys have, feel free to throw them in the chat. We take notes, we pay attention, we look at the chat afterwards. So it's, you guys can help us get you the information that you guys want.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's what we're here for. That's the whole reason we're here on Monday mornings, hanging out.
Exactly.
Oh, ES is saying his drum sounds sad since his new summon trial ended, patiently waiting for Black Friday holiday deals. I'm sure my drum buses would be sad without this Neve summing on it as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Happy Pathway, just add in Apollo Twin Duo to your X16 setup right after buying the Ultimate 8. You're fully on board. He was worried that you did it in the wrong order and would lose money, but you got a different set of plugins, and that's awesome. Loving the system, loving the plugins. That's so good that's awesome to hear, man. And that's I'm glad you're finding the value in that too, because that's a big thing that we also value, is being able to grow and expand your system as you need it. So being able to start with a twin and then add a rack, or start with a rack and add twins, or more rack units, or satellites. There's so many good ways to doing this, and they always do a good job on the plugin deals as well. Rich is saying he wants the Stream Deck thing now too. You're selling Stream Decks today, Drew.
Yeah, sorry. I know they're probably back in stock. I know first, for a while there, they might have been out of stock with the quarantine and all.
Right. The clock will also do. Yep, Victor's right. You can display in samples if you want to drive yourself nuts. Sample. That's really just the all jokes aside. Samples. They're good for one thing. They're good for measuring how the distance between things. So we've talked with especially with the addition of MIDI beat clock into Luna. It's now it's not the worst thing to be able to get in here and see, like, okay, look at my two kick drums here. How far between here and here? Well, if I was doing this in bars and beats, it's like, okay, 4 ticks. What does that mean? Well, actually, it's 3 milliseconds. Or I can come over here to samples. It's 185 samples. So it's measuring in samples allows a lot more precision if you're going to try to calculate an offset for something. But the way that MIDI beat clock works inside of Luna is that you'd want to be measuring these things in minutes and seconds, because all of those offsets, so this 0.004, you could use that number, and we've shown this when we were doing our deep dives about MIDI beat clock. Come into your settings, MIDI, and use that to set up your offsets for your external MIDI devices. I always want to stream Deck, but then I'm like, I can save money by just remembering the dang shortcuts. Nice one, missions.
Phil's asking, when I open multiple shape instances, does CPU take a hit? Very minor hit, but yes, CPU usage will increase the more instances you open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the question right after that from Happy Pathway is asking if Shape runs on DSP. Shape does not run on DSP. It's actually a native plugin. Similar, there's a few other ones that now with Luna we're actually kind of bridging both worlds, and Luna's doing the hot dance of like what makes more sense to be done natively and what makes sense to be done on DSP. So low latency audio effect processing, cue mixing, sends, all that sort of stuff, that happens in DSP because that's the fastest way to make that happen, and happen at a high quality way. Whereas things like instruments, those are always going to be faster from the CPU. So it's loading AU instruments, and even Luna instruments are running as a native process. And then similarly, stuff like Neve summing, Studer, the ATR, the Oxide tape, all of those Luna extensions, those are actually also running natively. You may notice that when you're tracking something in, you're in ARM mode, you don't hear the effect of those, of the summing or of the tape, because those are native processes. Luna in the background is saying, cool, like, we're going to stay low latency, automatically bypasses those while you're tracking, and then as soon as you're done tracking, reactivates those, and you get to hear it back through the tape. Which may seem like, I wish I could hear as it was coming in, but this actually replicates the old school workflow, right? Like when you were back in the day, when you were recording through a console onto a tape machine, what you would hear in your headphones as you were tracking was a signal off the desk, coming out of the cue mixes, just like we're doing here in Luna. And then you would come back out of the live room into the control room, engineer would rewind the tape and press play. Now you're hearing it off of the tape deck and going through the console and going through the final mix bus and all that processing. So Luna actually really replicates that sort of workflow, both as a requirement, to be able to work with the system that we have as is, but it's also a nice little harkens back to the old way of making music as well.
Well, yeah, it makes perfect sense too when you think about it, because like that's actually, like you said, our tools used to contribute to the sonics, right? And like now with computers, we're kind of used to computers being math, 1 + 1 is 2, and doing all of this digital stuff. But like, and this is one of the things that drew me to Universal Audio as a customer, almost 10 years ago, where it was like, wow, these people care about like the sonics and like tracking through Unison plugins and the tape sims and the ATR and then Neve summing and all this stuff. It's like your tools should contribute to the sonics. It shouldn't just be, it's not all utility, right? It's soul and it's vibe, and it's and it's like, that's what I love about the whole company, but also specifically about Luna, because like you said, it replicates all of this, and we're just getting started, right? We're just getting started with Luna.
We're on 1.1. Yeah,
that's a baby.
It's just a little bit older than 6 months old at this point. It's already starting to crawl really well.
It's knocking things over. It's making a mess.
Exactly. And happy pathway. Yeah, you're right. Luna does do something clever with Unison plugins as well. So both Unison and the record effects, those are only enabled when you're recording. So it uses the DSP while you're tracking, and then as soon as you're done tracking, unrecord and enable that track, and now you get that DSP back to either record another track or be using that horsepower for mixing. And then the best fact is that you can come back months later, record and enable that track again, and it rebuilds your same input path that you already had. That to me, like, that's the coolest thing. Like I've reopened sessions from months and months ago, and I can simply plug in my bass again, hit record, and I've got the exact same signal chain back immediately, which is so cool.
Yeah, and that's one of those things people say about Luna, like, well, gosh, does the world need another doll or something? It's like, well, once we're done with Luna, the world needed it, right? The world needed Luna and the way and the changes that it has made,
Oh, totally. Dan is asking, when can the Lunatics get an order form for Luna t-shirts? Hang tight. We know there's some swag stuff happening in the background, guys. Trust me. The holidays are near. Console doesn't see my UA hardware, twin or satellite. If I turn off my equipment and turn it back on, everything has to be on when I boot up my Mac. Any suggestions? Hopefully, if you're on an actual Mac, that it should show up after you booted, right, Matt?
Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
Console's not seeing his UA hardware, which is a twin and a satellite. If you turn, if the machine is booted and he power cycles his UA gear, they should show back up typically, right?
Yeah. Thunderbolt, you should be able to hot plug, should be able to, power cycle while the computer's on. I'd suggest him in the chat, try an SMC and NVRAM reset on the Mac, because I can fix that sometimes.
Nice. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, let's see. I'd love to drop some more hints. I'm trying to think. There is one hint. There's something published on our YouTube channel. It's got a long bearded man. It was
found in approximately 10 seconds too, by the way.
That did not take very long at all.
It did not take very long. Visit our YouTube channel, watch some videos that we've released in the last few days, see if you notice anything.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you'll notice a little something different in there.
Yeah, maybe.
Or you'll just scroll down and read the comments, which kind of give it away. But that's not fun. The fun is to watch it and try to challenge yourself to, I spy with my little eye something new and different on the screen. So there's something in that video that is coming tomorrow, but that's not the only thing. There's other stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm so excited for you guys to. Hey, what's up, Townsend Lab?
Townsend Labs is in the chat. Maybe, I don't know. Are they involved at all? I have no idea.
There might be something in there. I don't know.
You'll just have to tune in.
Our insert slots limited to 8 inserts at the moment? Yes, they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
but you can send a track to a bus, and now you're at 16. Super easy. To get up to 16 with like basic, and you get the added benefit of summing and tape in addition when you add a bus. So it sounds crazy, but there's plenty of times where I'm sending a single bass track to a bus. Right? I wouldn't do that in any other app, but in Luna, it pays dividends to do that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Steve's saying he comes from Logic and he sees that the audio editing in Luna is Pro Tools style. What is a good way to learn these methods? Just practice the keyboard shortcuts. I think Luna kind of took a lot of it learned a lot from a lot of different applications, right? Learn from Pro Tools, from Ableton, from Logic, from Cubase, from all the major ones out there. We're able to see what everyone's doing and kind of take the best bits from each one of them. But with that said, yeah, a lot of the editing is similar to a Pro Tools style editing. So there are a bunch of great keyboard shortcuts around being able to quickly trim, be able to quickly move, as we were talking about all the shift edits, being able to quickly duplicate, or change the timeline stuff around. And yeah, the best teacher is practice. As much as we could make videos about these all day long about how to do editing and how to do this sort of stuff. The best way is to get your hands dirty and be using it in practice.
Yeah, so much of it's muscle memory. Your eyes and your hands and your brain all start to come into focus. And everybody should know that the full keyboard list of shortcut list is listed right there in the help menu. So it's an HTML document. Simply go to help menu, do shortcuts, and boom, they're right there. And as Ben mentioned, there's several that are that are common things that you'll probably use. R and T to zoom in and out, of course, D, F, and G for fades, and A and S to trim, all those basics. So yeah, just, invest some time, get over the hump. I was never a smart tool user in Pro Tools. I preferred to use the F keys to choose my tools as needed, but Luna has, converted me into a smart tool user. And you just get, just train your muscles.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, guys, man, you guys have had such good questions. We kept the show rocking here all morning. You guys, as always, we've got some fantastic ideas, questions. Always happy to help and hang out with you guys here on Monday mornings. We'll definitely think a little bit more about the VO editing workflow. Maybe come back. I know, Matt, you've been doing lots of VO editing for the Luna Basics series.
Yep.
So yeah, it'd be good to get some of your tips and tricks for editing vocals as well, that aren't non-sung vocals, some spoken word stuff. Be cool to talk about that next week.
For sure.
Great. Well, guys, we're gonna leave you in suspense for what's to come tomorrow. But just know, show up.
Come back and see.
He's going to come back tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll be here with Jeff Balding, fantastic producer engineer out of Nashville, who helped us out creating some content for what's coming out tomorrow. So, guys, tune back in 10 a.m. tomorrow with Jeff. 10 a.m. Wednesday morning with Damian Taylor, and then 10 a.m. Thursday morning with Charlie Hunter and Darren. It's a fun, great week of shows. So I'm excited to get going on them. Excited to see you guys all back here again in less than 24 hours. So everybody have a fantastic rest of your Monday, and we'll see you back here.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.